What if you could put a screen that's on par with your phone screen into your original Game Boy? You can, and I'm gonna show you how to do it. What's up guys, Luke from 8-Bit Plus, back again with another mod video, and today we're going to be turning this unplayable battery sucking relic from this to this. If you're looking to do this yourself, sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's mod your old And the first thing you want to do is make sure you take out all the batteries as well as any games that may be in the system. There are 6 screws on the back of the Gameboy DMG. They're all Phillips head screws. There's 4 on the outside and then 2 inside of the battery compartment. Now that we got all the screws out, we're gonna want to separate the 2 pieces from each other. There is a little ribbon cable that holds the 2 boards together, so you're just gonna kind of wiggle that one out. And now it's time to start taking the screws out of the front half. There are quite a few of them. We'll put a little counter on the screen so you can keep track. So if you start taking it apart and you haven't taken out this many screws, you probably are not seeing one. As you'll see later on in actually my process of taking all the screws out, I did actually miss one and have to go back and take one final screw out so I could finally separate this board from the actual housing. So Nintendo is known in the repair community for having way too many screws in their consoles. It gets ridiculous sometimes, guys. And now it looks like we have all of those screws taken out, so we can just pretty much just pull that whole board. On this board, really the only thing that we need from it is going to be the speaker, so we're gonna go ahead and desolder that right now. A couple quick notes: if you're new to soldering, you want to use an iron that's at least semi-decent. I mean, I started with an iron from Radio Shack, but you know, get something that's at least semi-decent, has a digital readout to do soldering with. And then you always, in my opinion, want to use flux. Flux just makes your life so much easier when it comes to soldering. So you'll see right here how the solder will melt super nice, and we'll just pull the wires out. And now guys, it's time to start to separate the buttons and the little, I call them lobes. I don't know the exact name for them, but they're just the little lobes that make contact with the board. We're just gonna pull all those out. The 2 buttons, A and B, the start and select button and the D-pad, and just set those to the side. And now we're gonna start working on the back half of the Gameboy DMG. There's a couple of screws that hold down the cartridge slot board, as I like to call it. So we're gonna take those 2 out, and then you also have the power regulator board that's just below it. I believe there is just 1 screw holding that one in. And when all 3 of those screws are out, you should just be able to lift it. Oh, 4 of those screws. Sorry, my bad. All 4 of those screws are out. You should just be able to lift the whole assembly, power regulator, cartridge slot board, and all right out. And underneath we actually have 4 more screws holding in the RF shield for the cartridge slot. And now we're gonna pull out the little battery terminals along with the power switch. That's just a little plastic nub that will probably just fall out. But I'm just showing you, I'm trying to show you at least here, they're little notches that they're just aluminum contacts for the battery compartment. And you just gotta kind of grab like a thin, small tool and just push those notches in. On the back side here, as you can see, it's a little hard to get in there. So, you know, in this case, I use tweezers. you just kind of need like a flat tool to kind of sneak in there and get those notches flat. And then all 3 of those battery contact terminals will slide right out. Now, I do want to note that this is not necessary to the repair guys. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it's just good practice to clean up the casing while you're opening it up to put a $70 some odd screen in it. So that's why we're taking those pieces apart. If you aren't planning on cleaning your case though, you can actually just leave that alone and just move on with the mod. But as you see here, I'm gonna throw my buttons, A, B, start, select, D-pad, and the lobes all in a little bit of soapy water and let those soak a little bit, as well as we're gonna take that casing and go ahead and give it a clean. And what do you know, man, in record time, guys, we got it completely cleaned up. No, I'm just kidding. That's the magic of editing. Just some good old-fashioned elbow grease, little cleaning solution I use, awesome. And then what do you know, nice and dried, and just dried to perfection, ready to go for another 30 years. And now, guys, we're gonna go ahead and solder the speaker that we desoldered earlier from the old board into the new board. So we'll be able to get that all soldered together, and it can be our speaker for the console still. So we're just gonna do the same thing we did last time, just kind of in reverse. Instead of trying to desolder it, we're gonna solder it in place. Make sure you get the left and the right terminal right. If you do get it wrong, it's not that big of a deal. You're not gonna fry anything, but you might have to backtrack. And now that I got it soldered in place, what I just sprayed on it right there is just regular isopropyl alcohol with a little Q-tip, just to clean up the flux. You always want to do like a neat job whenever you're working on something, guys. You don't want flux everywhere, so it's just good practice in repair / modding. Make sure you kind of clean up the area after you've been soldering. And now we're gonna go ahead and shave a couple bits off of the front housing. The reason why we're doing this is the screen that we're putting in is not gonna fit properly unless we do. A couple of quick notes here. You can totally do this with angle cutters and a craft knife like I'm doing. But after doing it, I would highly recommend just using a Dremel. So if you don't have one, you know, you can do it this way, but I just found that when you're working on stuff like this, it's much easier if you use a Dremel. So you'll see me kind of struggle here, and you really do want to make sure you are clipping and trimming all the places that I'm trimming here. And we'll actually put a photo up on the screen so you can see the exact places where you do have to trim, along with the visual aid that you're getting as well. Guys, I do want to note that this little nub that we're about to slice off, just to make sure that you guys are seeing this, this is actually from the back side of the casing. So the one that we're hacking away at earlier, this is the opposite side. And this is where the contrast wheel lays. So we're just slicing just a little bit of excess like lip that hangs above the contrast. So don't gouge down into it like I did. Just slice the little bit of excess. And there's that satisfying fresh LCD screen. We're just gonna go ahead and install this into the top housing, along with the DMG 3D printed bracket. What this bracket does is it basically makes sure that the screen stays in place when you're reassembling it. I highly recommend getting it with your order. At the time of this video being made, you do have to order it separately. So you definitely want to add that to your cart. It's like $4 or $5. And it just makes sure it stays in place. You don't have to mess around with like hokey taping remedies and things like that to make it fit. And now we're gonna put the small PCB, the smaller PCB, into the case as well, and that just connects through a ribbon cable to the LCD. And then on the other side of the PCB, that actually connects into the other PCB that we soldered the speaker into earlier. And guys, just a pro tip, you do kind of want to put a little bit of tape. I just used the double-sided tape that came with the kit, and just hold down that PCB nice and straight. It does tend to want to move around when you're laying the other board on top of it. So just put some sort of tape down so that it kind of like holds it flat and straight. And at this point, you can start putting your buttons back. Don't forget to do this. I do it all the time. I start putting the boards back on and I forget buttons. So make sure you're putting all the buttons back, the A, the B, start select, and D-pad. All nice and dry, no water on them. I repeat, no water. Electronics hate water. They're not friends. They don't get along. You're gonna ruin your stuff. And now we're just gonna go ahead and lay that board back in with the speaker. And the speaker just kind of fits into a notch, and make sure it's all aligned and straight. And then we can start putting screws in. Just a quick note, you do need to slip that ribbon cable in. And then also there's gonna be less screws. Obviously, we just got done filing away some of the screw holes from the previous board, so there's gonna be less. You're gonna have some extra screws after this. There's 5 that hold this board in, and believe me, it's more than enough. So just screw the ones that you can screw in, and you'll be all set. And now it's time to take our freshly cleaned backside and put everything back, and we're just gonna do the same thing here. We're just working in reverse. Those tabs that we flattened, now we're gonna actually pry back out, and you're gonna want to use a flat tool just like I'm doing, and just push those little tabs back out. And when you slide them in, you'll hear a click, and they'll just snap right back into place. It's actually really satisfying, to be honest. And don't forget the RF shielding and the 4 screws that hold it in. And lastly, guys, I repeat, do not forget to put your power switch back in. I actually had to go back, and this is from later in the video. I had to go back and like jankily, loosen screws because I had the 2 sides together again, and I didn't want to pull the ribbon cable out. So it was just a total mess for me. Do not forget to put that power switch in, but you do need to connect the 2 ribbon cables back up and put it back together. Ignore that there's no power switch for a second. And then once those are all together again, now you're home free. It's time to put those 6 screws back into this puppy. Put the game in with the batteries. Switch on the power and dramatically flip and see what your awesome work has produced.
The DMG Game Boy was an incredible piece of tech when it first came out. It was now possible to take your NES and put it in your pocket and play anywhere. This was revolutionary, and the Game Boy's lifespan is a testament to what it provided. But sadly, as time has passed, the Game Boy has become less and less of a viable option for gaming on the go. It had gotten to the point for me that I had a hard time getting the Game Boys I bought cleaned up and put out for sale because, why would anyone want to deal with that awful looking screen? But this modification really does breathe new life into a once, in my opinion, dead console, and make something that I could see myself playing and you playing a lot more. Hey guys, if you got any value out of this video at all, do me a big favor and smash like, as well as subscribe with notifications turned on so you can catch us whenever we post a video. And lastly, I want to know from you, does seeing this mod make you want to break out that old Game Boy and give it new life? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time guys, Luke from 8-Bit Plus signing out, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless.